some of these other things in the green bucket.
Which is great, and that's the conversation I think the board has to have. We did realize as a team here, most of us probably wouldn't see a shovel in the ground for a new admin building, no matter how it happens, because of the timing. I mean, that would be the end of the series, right? Those are things that you do probably at the end anyway, and it wasn't about that. I know you guys like to see, come on. But yeah, just, you know, there's a lot of work we have to do, initially with the air conditioning, safety and security, technology. I mean, there's a lot, there's a heavy lift, but.
I agree with what Dawn just shared. You guys have, first of all, you guys have outgrown the space. I think that admin building is definitely a necessity.
And I think we really, if that's something that, I think we as a team need to now explore what are the feasibilities, because, you know, our initial conversation was to put a building across the parking lot here, and then when it's done, then get rid of this building, additional parking and playground usage for park, right? So we kind of incorporate both, change buses a little bit, add more parking. Now you have true professional development opportunities that you can have there. You have a true boardroom, that looks different. I mean, there's a lot of things we can do, but that was initial. So then it wasn't till lately, we're like, you know, what if we incorporated over at early childhood center? The challenge with that is parking looks different during the day for professional development when you have a large number of high school kids that will be driving over for CTE. And so we're trying to, but we just started having those conversations, and that's something we can do.
Is there any, I know you made the decision to not put any numbers on anything when you did the survey. Looking back, would you wish you would have done that differently, or based on what Adam said and what you said about the air conditioning coming down so dramatically, that might have been a, you know, a misleading number that we had.
Yeah, I think putting the numbers on that, prioritize when people are like, oh, if you can do, here's the 12 things you can do versus these two. And the numbers that we have are when we think would be a good series to do. Explaining that is hard to do. So we really just wanted to get feedback from really what are, and I going back to Dawn's point about some of the athletic conversations, I think, in my opinion, I don't get to make these decisions, fortunately. My opinion, there were still positive feedback. It just didn't want to if you're gonna do, if all we had was 60 million it's not gonna be about athletics. It needs to be about some of the other things we need to do.
Like Byron Center's bond.
Yeah, Byron Center's bond is all athletics. That's all it is. Well, there's a little there, but it's almost all bond, or it's almost all athletics. And so it's different, and this was not a heavy athletic one. There are some things, we have to put a new turf at our Baldwin campus, no matter what we do. So those are, but it wasn't a heavy athletics. There were some things to do. The question, the biggest price tag is an indoor facility, and really that just comes down to opportunities and timing, and that could be, you know what, we'd like to do that, but not right now. And that's where we put them in. So these buckets are my buckets. These are not your, if you say, pull this from here, put it here, those are the discussions that would like to take place for the next month, maybe month and a half. We don't have to finalize, I put next month, but it might just be another conversation next month. You ask for, you know, over the next couple of weeks, we need this, this, and this, we come back and do it again. We do get close to making some decisions about what should be on there, and to that point, we don't have to specify every single project, but we have to word the bond in a way that can cover what we want to do, and be able to stay within that scope and expectation. If our community votes on something, we need to make sure that it is on the list. We can't just take it off the list because we've changed our mind.
Another theme that's been prevalent across previous bonds is this notion of parity, north to south. And it didn't strike me through the results of this bond, through the information that was shared, that was being raised as an issue, although you did touch on it. With the athletic facility, or 5-6 building in the indoor athletic facility. If that could be built at the south end, now we're saying, no, it's not here, but 5-6 buildings certainly. So, just share your thoughts around that. I mean, yeah, we really don't hear, it was a big thing, right, Don, for a while, the south is,
Mhm.
so that was again, previous bonds, that was a theme.
I think
Wasn't
it
the last
still
one
is.
so much as ones before that, it was a big theme.
I still think there is a conversation about why do we have to go all the way up to Baldwin's campus for not half of our sports, but we have more and more at the high school campus, which is nice. Having lacrosse there is nice. But I think it'd be nice from putting a facility on the south end so that, you have fields that can be used too for, I don't know, parents wanna go out and take a walk on a Sunday, there's a track over at that facility. There is one at Riley, and you can have a field there, and there could be practices, and every time we add fields, we have 2 new fields coming online at the 5-6 building in the back. They're grass fields, but, Rebecca Fabiano, the minute we add them, the minute they're booked and used, and, you add a gym, and 10 teams wanna use that one, there's just a lot going on. So I do believe that the south end asked more for the 5-6 building, because they don't have it. But it wasn't an overwhelming, we really need it. It would be a lot different if we had portables at Jamestown Upper. We had portables maybe at Riley, maybe had portables over at Forest Grove or at South. We don't, so we have capacity. Looking at trend, now we are still waiting on enrollment projections. We started that work about 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago. We had a lot of questions and answers with Stanford Associates that do our projections. We're waiting to get those. They do know the timing. They were hoping to have it, we were hoping to have it by tonight, but we don't have the enrollment projections yet. Gives us a better indicator, but the housing market dictates a lot of that and the cost of houses. So I feel that a 5-6 building could be in the 3rd series, or it can be in the next bond. It just, the timing is not screaming for that. It's actually asking more for the ECCs than for the 5-6 building. It's actually asking, and some of it is, I'll let the board, I don't give you my opinion, what you hear.
Yeah, one, I just wanna thank you for the strategy that Kevin has taken on this, cause obviously we've seen other districts that haven't passed bonds and are going back to do a survey, so just thanks for the front end work. I think that positions us really well, hopefully moving forward, hearing from the community first. I think when I was looking at the numbers, we're pretty much flat enrollment rise now of 2025 to 2018, within just a few years. It is kind of a hard sell from a bunch of buildings standpoint when enrollment's flat, although compared to other districts, good. So I get from, we don't need a 5-6 now, but what you said earlier about consistency of curriculum and all of that, like, to me, that actually makes drawing both sides of the district in line a higher priority if we are about providing the best experience for all students. Has there been any thought to repurposing Jamestown Upper and Lower? And say, hey, can we make Jamestown Lower, Jamestown Elementary, extend the hallways out and turn Jamestown Upper into a 5-6 building? Because they used to have 5th and 6th grade students there, so from a size standpoint, do we save something meaningful from a cost standpoint looking at that, or is the cost savings negligible repurposing buildings?
Well, I think you can definitely get a cost savings, a lot less, there's site work, but not as much site work. We have the property, that on that site. I think the challenge is what I think the board ran into when they put Jamestown Lower in, that families didn't want to have the old building, they wanted to have the new building, so making it lower and upper took care of both problems. You had the opportunity to be in a new building than an old building, as opposed to making it Jamestown North and Jamestown South, if that makes sense.
I think we talked about that before, so in this scenario, you would still have that, cause you'd have Jamestown Elementary and then.
They would have it, but it's not as new anymore, so Jamestown Lower isn't as new as, but then they would all have an opportunity to go to the 5-6 building, which would be a new building. We talked about, and the answer is no, to your original question, have you looked at that? That's definitely something we can look at, cause you can extend, there's, I think there's some footings at Jamestown Lower we had talked about, and we initially were gonna put 4 more classrooms on Jamestown Lower in this bond, but enrollment didn't dictate it at that point. So we were gonna take, there's still those footings, but we also can extend, cause we have property that we didn't have pre-COVID over there. We can extend at Jamestown Upper, and maybe turn that into a 5-6, so now you'd have a pretty big K-4 building with Jamestown Lower. It would be almost, not double in size, but probably 70-60% more. And then a 5-6, definitely something to look at. It would be cheaper than doing a whole new building. I mean, it would be.
I mean, a 5-6, turning the old Jamestown, which is Jamestown Upper, into a 5-6 building, there'd definitely be a big difference between the current Georgetown 5-6 building and converting an old building.
It would
to
look a
5-6.
lot different.
Yeah, it would be
The
different.
two-story newness and
Yeah.
the big gym and those kind of things.
There's just so much there that you have to.
But we can look at it. I mean,
I'm
it's
just like,
Right.
okay,
It doesn't
we've
hurt
got
to-
a price tag at 320. We're trying to spend no more than 240, and if there's ways to save 20 million here or 30
Yeah.
on something, and I'm a big believer that we're gonna see, again, data will tell us everything, but that difference between 6, 7, and 8 on one end of the district and 5, 6 on the other, I don't love that going forward.
Yeah, one of the conversations that we've had is whenever you do a project like this, we did this last time, we had a major bond, is you talk about what's next. So the question is, what is next after this bond? It could be 10 years, it could be 6, we don't know. I mean, if you have a whole big influx, a lot could change. But if you're thinking about of these projects, what could we say, you know what? Let's do this one, this is next. Is there something on there that, if you take, I'll say the green bucket number 3, and you're like, let's just pull that one, get everything else done because that will be next. You have to ask yourself, will that be successful on its own? Or not? And then if you say, let's not do bucket 1, would that be successful on its own, or bucket 2, or bucket 4? But those are just those buckets that I define. If you have different buckets, that's okay, you move things around, but try to think about what could be next. I think if we don't do any athletics, I don't know if that could be next on its own.
Right.
In whatever year, I don't know what year it would be, we don't know what year it will be, I mean, when we passed our last bond, we had talked about 2024 doing another bond issue, and then COVID hit, and then it was like, whoa, okay, and we didn't know when enrollment was gonna go, and there's a lot of variables we don't know, so, the question is what's next? And you don't have to worry about that topic, but I think when we had our last bond, like, you know what, air conditioning has to be next on this next bond. Not anyone?
Too, it's for a few weeks, that's what it is.
And Mike behind you will say.
There-
I know,
there
the
was
first 6
horrible
weeks
days,
is
though.
miserable, I hear ya.
Yeah.
I'm just
Yeah.
not surprised that there's a necessity, cause there is, regardless of how people feel. But I was surprised at how strongly people advocated for that. I guess,
It was the number one thing in our focus group.
and I guess I'm too old school, but I was just
Yeah, it's air,
surprised.
it is air quality, not just temperature.
Yeah,
Air quality.
right.
Yeah,
Air quality as
yeah.
well.
You're in Forest Grove classrooms.
Yeah,
I was a parent there in the summer and,
Yeah.
yeah. pretty
allergies,
miserable.
smells, flies,
Mhm.
you name it.
I would just, again, I know you have put tons of work into that, that's just one of those, as
Yeah.
I'm thinking about it, man, if we could save something there. I think it's interesting too, I get the whole admin building thing, that, honestly, that'd be like the hardest sell to the community, cause again, they
Yeah.
never see it.
Yeah.
I think it's an interesting idea to think about the property that we have at the ECC, hopefully soon to be CTE, and just, I still like having like the admin building like in Hudsonville proper for some reason, I don't know why.
Agreed.
But we've got all of those little league type fields that never get used anymore, so I get the parking thing, but if we could get creative in sales there that don't get.
We always
maintained.
said we might have to take the pickleball courts over, right?
Yeah, no, I never.
But if we could get creative with, hey, we will use this
Not once there.
for other things.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think those conversations, I think the conversation that we had is, we feel that, there are enough items on here that are favorable to people to say, okay, this is a lot, I don't like this, this, and this, but I like this to outweigh what I don't like. No matter what we do, there's gonna be a project on here, someone's like, this is ridiculous, we're doing this, but I'm really glad they're doing this.
Yeah.
And going from there, I think the safety and security, the technology, the playgrounds, those are things that are outweigh, I can't believe this costs this much, or they're doing this.
Yeah, but if we can, it's an easier sell, if it's admin building slash, it's connected to one of our other buildings and they can use it for teaching and learning things, staff development, cause I mean, we only need this room twice a month. The more we can utilize the space outside of business hours, the better.
I think one thing we found here is we use this room all the time.
Yeah, for
But that's, we have
settings, yeah.
PD in here on a regular basis, but,
So is there a way, you probably can't, well, and you probably did, I guess it would be very interesting to me when you look at these things that people wanted, and when you think about the future, it would seem logical that the ECC buildings on North and South would clearly favor younger people or grandparents with grandkids. It would be interesting to see, based on the surveys, how that would come out. So for the people that favored air conditioning and the people that favored the ECC, were they typically people with younger children? Just lost, I think your battery died too. Yeah, so, it would be interesting for me to see that, because, yeah, I mean, they're typically gonna be the ones that have homes in the district.
one thing that we talk about also is making, facilities that are attractive to families that are making choices between not just Hudsonville, but keeping their kids at home or doing all these
Right.
different, so having an early childhood is more accessible at a building that's, quite frankly, probably more attractive than the early childhood, no disrespect to the building, it's just, it's older,
Yeah.
right? Playground looks different, we have playground equipment that's the right size, but you do something that looks pretty, just more attractive to younger families.
Smaller and
It's really tough.
personal.
Smaller and personal.
We heard of focus groups, it's tough for people, it's amazing how many people live on the north and work that way. They moved in Hudsonville for that reason.
Yeah.
And they have to, battle down to
Yeah.
the ECC and then battle back.
Yeah.
And it's not like it's the thickest traffic, but it's just 2-lane road.
Yeah.
And so that, we went, wow, that really came out in the focus group
Yeah.
from parents.
Yeah.
If you're in Jamestown, you can drop your kids off maybe, a little's off, and then get out on 6,
Right.
it's different than if you
Yeah.
want to drive to ECC, or vice versa, if you're out near Bauer, you can just take Baldwin to head out, instead you can jump.
Jamestown.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you have one on each end, I mean, you just think from the business perspective, attracting young professionals, they're gonna be, more than likely, you're gonna be looking for that. And so, again, that whole thing of where are our neighborhoods really that are developing, it's on the ends, it's not in the middle. But yeah, it would be interesting just to see from that survey, kind of the categories or age groups that tended to favor. Like, I would love to see who it was that is so excited about air conditioning, besides Mike Anderson. I think it's Mike, and his second floor at the high school. But it'd be
I
really
can write that down.
interesting to see, because then it'll help us focus on who we're going to target and who we're going to, explain it to, like, okay, so if people in my age group say,
Yeah.
well, we blah, 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 it's
Go both
bringing
ways,
in,
yeah.
yes, we understand that, but they can't have windows because they don't, for security purposes now, and there are a lot of kids, then you can sort of target your conversation based on that group. Does that make any sense?
It does.
Yeah.
And we can also have conversations, I mean, the other thing similar to the early childhood is the CTE. For the number of kids that don't get into programs at Ottawa that are driving down, like,
Yes.
days like
Yeah.
today, and they're driving down to Ottawa instead of going to ours, and it could be very well kids from other districts are like,
Yep.
I don't wanna go all the way to Kent or all the way to Holland or, Zealand area. Hudsonville has a program. If our kids are in it and there's still room, it could bring other kids that wanna.
There are a lot of, people our age who are looking that would like to retire, but they can't find somebody to take over their businesses in the trades. And I hear that all the time from people in that sector of business, that we need to be able to have more opportunities to get kids into the trades. So again, that's a good selling point for some of those things.
And the one thing, going back to, just real quick, I wanted to, before we go to, really the conversation is about probably trying to, we could probably bond a lot more of this than, we can't bond it all, we can't do all of it. But we're looking at probably about 60 million that we have food cut out, that's why I put them in the buckets that size. So when it gets back to the Jamestown upper and lower conversation, that's not gonna be a wash, I mean, we'd have to eliminate some other projects.
Totally, yeah, like, we can say 20 here, 30 here.
Yeah,
So
that's what-
60-ish is what we're trying to.
60 was kind of the target number, that's how I ended up buckets, where the first 3 buckets were about 60 million. Just how they were carried, just how, that's how I did it, so.
I like it.
And if I put it in a way that you can take your crayons out and.
Sequencing wise, CTE can't happen until after we would do North and South ECC, that's a package deal.
Is there, where would the North ECC, where is there space for the North ECC?
It would be to the west of the 5-6 building, where the cross-country trail is. It's in the middle of the cross-country trail.
Oh, God. Go over real
Oh,
well.
Mr.
Well, it's, no, they know this, it's part of the whole site, we put it intentionally in the site plan of how they put it in.
Yes.
So it's intended to go through, kinda like if you've been to Allendale's cross-country course, it's very similar, how you have to run over the entrance run across the entrance of the building as part of the drive, it'd be the same thing, entrance to the road, you just run across, I mean, it's part of the.
There's room for 2 schools there.
There's room for 2 schools plus on the Riley campus, Jamestown
Do
campus.
we own up to, Bauer,
We do,
so we could
we go on across Bauer also.
So would there be an entrance and exit on the Bauer
Yes.
for that property?
If you look at the bus loop in there, it tees and then goes right to the 5-6 building. It tees intentionally because the other end of the T goes the other way to the campus.
Nice, no traffic.
We have we have laid out all of these options and a couple different options in different villages that we'll get into if it's part of the scope. That's part 2.
Yep, cool, thank you.
And we're just looking at buckets and words, but we know there's tons of work that you guys put in, so, thank you. And, when you first started talking about it, I'm like, what, we're talking about this stuff already? And, again, I know that there's a lot behind this, so don't take our questions in the wrong way. because-
Not at all,
Yeah.
this is, so we're doing it. Same with the, indoor facility, we talked a lot about, trying to minimize the size, but maximize the opportunity for kids.
I think the process and the presentation have been exceptional. And if we just had to make our decision based on that, I think, we'd have a winner. I'm a little bit concerned too about, Nick's comment about the students we had in 2018, what we have in 2025. On the other hand, I look at the size of this district and how much land there is to build. And I just sent something to Dr. Rainer, Jack, and Pat last week. For the first time in, I think, over a decade, Ottawa County has no localities that are in the top 20 growth-wise from a dollar standpoint, not from a, so that's something, that could, people look at those things and they say, okay, well, Byron Center costs this much in Caledonia and Rockford. I don't see Hudsonville or Georgetown Township on here, or what was it?
Jamestown.
The other townships.
London?
London, yeah. I don't see those on there, so maybe I'll start to look at land over there. Cause I think when it comes to open space, I think we're one of the largest districts around, right?
Yeah, I mean, yes, no, I mean, it's not all size-wise, I mean, Granville's an interesting layout, Zealand's got a lot of room, I think from, the thing about Hudsonville that makes it so attractive, is the location to the lake shore and to Grand Rapids and M6. It just is, it just really, I was gonna say leadership.
I know you're waiting for, Stanford to come back, but do you have any sense, do we lose kids, schools and choice on Byron?
I have that not handy, but I can look
What's your
into
gut?
that.
Just what's your
Yeah,
gut?
we don't, we,
We do on the north end, obviously, but 500, 600 to Jenison.
yeah,
That was always a relief valve for us.
it was,
What's your sense to Byron?
well, the whole state's losing so
I know,
many
I know,
students, that's
but
a
I'm talking
challenge,
about-
and
I'm
I
talking
don't-
about, do we lose students?
the last I remember between Byron Center and Hudsonville, it was a wash,
Okay.
going back and forth.
Okay.
The biggest population down there of change is the population that homeschools their kids at a younger age and then sends them to the public schools in maybe 6th or 7th grade. And that's equally, could be a challenge, sometimes it's, you don't know the environment of homeschooling. I mean, there's some that hit a home run and just do amazing, they're all different. You don't control that narrative like you do when you have, you know what kids are doing in our buildings, you don't know what they're doing when you have hundreds of homeschoolers.
That's an interesting point, Ken. So if we're losing 400 or 500 to Jenison, I know some of it's because of those neighborhoods. How many of them is because they have the hybrid online? Because Byron doesn't have that, right?
No, there's not a ton, a lot of those.
So most of the kids that are school choice in Jenison are like in
Physically.
physically
Yeah,
there.
I mean, we've talked about this many times, and when I can walk out my front door, in many cases, almost literally, almost literally, and I see Jensen's school right there, and I have to get on a bus and go where? Jensen's right there, I'm just gonna take my kid down.
Yeah, totally, yeah.
That locality, that
Well, you know,
proximity of their school to
unique.
the north end of our district is.
Yeah, we put our high school in the
Right.
smack dab middle of our district, and they put theirs in the far northwest corner of theirs in 1976 or whatever. Right, it's just a location. If theirs was in the middle of their district, it would be where Meyer is, and it would look different.
Yeah.
So,
I was just curious if you
Yeah,
knew
I wrote
about
that
it. It's not significant, it was just, again, I think about themes that kind of stand out, from the survey and that we're looking at, and I think the bucketing helps to, I see academics and academic support, I see, we talked about parity, north to south in there, and, growth or sustaining, and how we, cause we're gonna all be competing more for these shrinking, as you said, population of students. So we're gonna be competing, and if people move in, and used to be they could look at Jenison and Zealand and Hudsonville and go, well, and there was enough movement in that we would all grow. That's becoming less and less significant, although I do agree that there's still space for growth in the south, but it's different. So that, how do we structure things to sustain and ideally grow and, grab population that's coming into the area? That's not all on us, that's part of the housing dilemma as well.
two things to consider. Number one, unless you wanna go, two things to consider. Number one is, you're looking at a pretty substantial bond, and, you don't know what it's gonna, you're looking at 3 series, which means the 3rd series might not start for 6
Right.
years.
Right.
The district could look a lot different in 6 years.
Yeah.
But you can't change the ballot language to completely overhaul and say, hey, you know what? We didn't ask for this, but now we need this, and so we're gonna do this, and that's unfortunate, we can't do it. So there's another approach by doing 2 of these buckets, and don't ask for, but I think the need was, if you looked at the survey, you could justify every single item on there. There was not a single item, which we were hoping for, was below 50% favorable, and when you pair them with items that people are interested in, one pulls the other. You don't put them in they're not 3 different ballots language, there's one ballot language, one from there. the other challenge when it comes to enrollment, we can only build what we can fill. So the Department of Treasury won't let us build a building that we can't fill. Was that Howell that went through and built a new high school in, and then they couldn't open it, right? And I will say, there's other districts that maybe were not, able to, get a bond through, that maybe put in a building, that in order to fill the building, they had to shut a building down. And when you do that, that also challenges me. So I'm not suggesting that we put a 5-6 building in and then shut down another building. That would be horrific. But we have to be able to fill it, and when you do the numbers about filling it, it'd be close. We'll have to look at our projections, to get those numbers, but, it was easy to show that for the 5-6 building on the north end. We're just not there, and you know this from a community standpoint, when you're driving to a school and you see a couple portables, you start asking yourself, can we clean this up? And we did. And that was the intent. We don't have those in the south end right now, but yeah. So I'll work on that and find out more about BC. So I would encourage you, I know we could spend all night doing this. I know you had a question, Mr. Lee.
Yeah, I just, in terms of looking at like township master planning or zoning, or even conversations with prominent community members or business owners, things like that, within the district, have we looked at anything in terms of significant developments or business opportunities, things that'll help bring?
Like, is there
people
another
here?
Royal Technology
Or
coming in, or
something
is there
like that.
another?
Yeah, and we can't predict all of that always, but
Right.
other it's like our township master plans signaling low-income housing, or, things like that, I don't know.
Yeah, so there's a major shift with, the township planning to go through, the city planning to get some affordable housing. You see that along Balsam,
Yeah.
you see a lot of it right downtown in Terrace Square area. Those apartments are gonna be opening up. A lot of those could be, single family 24 to 29-year-olds, and they're not having kids until they're older now, which changes things a little bit. The housing market shift and people leaving the community and going into maybe an apartment or a condo, opens up some of the houses in the city. There's nothing major. I went through the planning development document today, in fact, with the city, and they're really more about, expanding onto some different businesses, but nothing major. There's not another, Meyer coming in, or Royal Technology, or Sound Off Signal, or some of the major businesses maybe along Quincy in the area. However, it is zoned for, more, not environmental, commercial industrial, over in that area. So, that's in Jamestown, it's not in the city.
Right, but that's our district.
But that does impact the people that move in and where they go. We're seeing more and more, I think, Mrs. Taylor talked about that when we talk about some of the other businesses, maybe in Holland, bringing in, people from all over the world, and they're moving into our district. I think there are 25 students that, potential EL learners, right, that are now here because they work at LG, over the Holland area, so.
Okay.
So but there's nothing major out there that's saying, I know there's a little bit of expansion they're talking about at some of the businesses on Quincy. But, and to the other end of it, I'm not hearing that somebody's looking at taking their business someplace else either, and doing the reverse of that.
In terms of
Which
Blendon,
equally.
Georgetown, Blendon Township, Georgetown, like, there's nothing.
Yeah, the biggest conversation in Blendon right now is how far will they go before they go to Zealand? So there's that line, and right now, it's all about where Meyer is. In all honesty, how far are you willing to get away from a Meyer before you wanna go farther to the other side to go to that Meyer? And so there's that 48 to 76, I think, and it's starting to close in a little bit, but they don't wanna go too far, 'cause it's too far away from, and that was the analogy that was given to me. I didn't think about that, because I always wanna live by Meyer, so.
At my age, I'm looking for the closest ambulance service. You youngsters might be thinking of Meyer, but I'm thinking of the other side. You'll get there.
You're not wrong.
someday.
You'll get there. I might be right with you. So,
Like the beach.
so I'm I'm gonna wait to hear feedback either from Greg or from any one of you, and it sounds like this is still a healthy conversation that we want to have, of course. We just don't have the luxury of several months to keep doing this. So I've got some questions, I would encourage you to take this and kind of continue to give it some thought after tonight. If there are other questions, I'll try to do my best to not just get back to you, but then see how I can summarize some of this with the board, maybe even it might even be a discussion topic at a next board meeting with some answers to some of the questions. But it would be nice to try to narrow the scope down by, particularly the end of, I'll say the end of February, or maybe the beginning of March. We just, at some point, we have to put numbers to it, say here's what we wanna do, and, we'll try to get some idea about upper and lower, what that looks like. It's a substantial, trying to narrow this down.
Thank you again.
Yeah.
Have we thought about, okay, cause I'm still looking in my mind, November, May, okay? And two totally different elections. And if we, and are we also looking at, okay, maybe if the electric tells us something in November, we could still pivot to May with something else.
You can, it all depends on what, it depends on what the narrative is.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's something that's a real sticking point with our community, I don't think it's wise to venture down that path. We
Right.
didn't hear that in the survey.
Yeah.
And I think that's where some other districts maybe didn't, do some of that
Right.
legwork. I was hoping to hear that. Like, if there was something that was just like, wow, we're biting off too much, pull it. That's what we're kinda hoping for. We didn't hear that overwhelming, yes, we heard some that were more favorable. The one challenge, the way the bond capacity works, and cut me off at any point, gentlemen, is the calculations based on the increase in the tax, percent, right? So if you do it in November, you're getting your summer numbers, and you go in November, cause you do the bonding capacity you have to do in May. May. So you're that far ahead. If we did it in May, we'd have to use the previous May's numbers. We're doing November, we're still using May's numbers. So the volume doesn't change the following May for the most part. But the content or what is on the bond could change. We've talked about, it is a gubernatorial election in November. What does that look like? I'm a big believer in, if that increases the number of people that vote, that's what your community wants. And if they don't want it, I would rather have more people vote to tell us something than try to find a time when, and I'm not saying that we may, but let's find a time. We always done our non-homestead sinking fund in May, just because of how that structure worked with summer taxes. It's almost just the opposite with bonds. Villages are, from a timing of getting the money. It's a little bit different.
When did you say those are enrollment projections? You'll be able to share that with us in the next board brief, if you get them by then or not?
I probably, yeah.
Cause I mean, I think that would be really helpful to see where
Again,
things are at, you know?
Yeah, the guy that does our projections is awesome. Fred Ignatovich, I don't know if you've heard the name, he's mid-90s, he still does it on paper. I mean, he's so amazing what he knows. When I reached out to him, he knew exactly what we had bonded in 18 and what our numbers were. It was, he's at Michigan State still, and, it was just interesting talking to him.
Wow.
But he, calls landline, and that's what we worked through.
Oh, my.
Did he and his wife do the baseball?
No,
schedules
he's
or
got a
is it different
team
people?
from, and he felt so from Moneyball. I mean, it was like that kind of but, he has a team now that does it, they did it before. But that's what we'll have to do for treasurer.
He does most of the state.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
When we reached out to him, Robin's like, reached out to him, I'm like, this can't be the same guy. Sure enough, and he's still going strong, he was on fire when we talked to him, he had a hard time when I got on the phone.
Yeah, he did.
You feel like we need a contingency plan.
I think we're good for now.
All right, this
We
guy.
might- Yeah, I think he's got a team now. Yeah.
I've got one more quick question.
Yeah.
So how confident are you that the survey is representative of our voters. So we have, how many people vote in our district, like 40,000?
Maybe
We had
38.
1,800 responses on this, like,
I don't know.
okay.
I didn't, hand out a survey at Meyer, Gemmons, or
I
something
know
like that. I tried to get we have access to all of our community, all of our parents. And then keep in mind, a lot of the parents I email, they might not live in Hudsonville, they might not vote in Hudsonville,
Sure.
they might live in, it could be a relative that lives in, a parent that might live in, I don't know, Sparta.
Sure.
That's
I
why we
guess-
initially, that's why we also reached out to all of our golden age, which is about 5.
There's quite a few, we don't know if some of them may
Yeah.
have moved out of the district, but.
But we know a lot of them at least, use our facilities for fine arts and athletics, so, we reached out to them, we haven't done that in the past, which is nice, because we know they don't have, they might have grandkids, they might, but they vote.
They vote.
They vote, right.
Yeah,
The reason
so-
I ask is because this is really good information and good data to inform our decisions, but also as community members and board members elected, like we also have to trust our guts on some of this stuff, right? And, what makes sense based on what we know, and what we hear, and all of those sorts of things. So I wanna definitely rely on the input we received. I think it's really important, that's why we did it. I think your focus groups would be really telling there and have been. I also just feel like some of the stuff we gotta trust ourselves here a little bit too, and just because we have one demographic that says we love air conditioning, we need it, doesn't mean that if someone isn't represented, or if there's a demographic that's maybe underrepresented in the survey, doesn't mean we should rule things out just because of the survey, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I think, statistically speaking,
Yeah.
you got a lot of data.
Yeah.
Right, so from a stat standpoint, you look and think, this is pretty reliable.
Sure.
It'd be one thing if we got 180 responses.
Sure, 1,800 against.
So that is a positive thing, but, on the other side, we could spend a lot of money, we could spend $60,000 doing Epic MRA, survey, but I didn't get the feel that our community was pushing back on it. We had to really narrow the focus because, they don't want any of this work. And that's where I think others run into a little bit of a roadblock. I know there is a district that did not, pass a bond issue, it's not north of here. But there's one that didn't pass a bond issue, and then they went back and did an Epic MRA survey to find out. And it helped, but it was still the same story. I guess if our community would've come back and every one of these items was kind of mixed,
Yeah.
or 50-50, or even 60%, and been like, we gotta dig deeper.
Sure.
Before we do
Yeah.
anything. It was just, I think the biggest thing it told us was we can move forward.
Absolutely.
And I also will tell you that, I think our board's in a really good place from leading our community and our district to a standpoint of sticking together is a lot better than maybe some board members saying, I don't support this and I'm gonna campaign against it, which would be hard. I also think we wanna hear people that, do have questions, tough questions, we wanna address them.
Yeah, I agree with your point about, that. Now, I look at this and that first bucket, there's basically there's 120 million that's sort of just do it. Really, the air conditioning, existing building, technology, furniture, sidewalks, admin building, we were gonna talk about, but that first bucket, it's like, yeah, you gotta maintain buildings, you gotta do that stuff. So to me, there's, what we say, 240, is that roughly the bond amount that we could go for from the state, so then there's another 120 million that is spread across the remaining 3 buckets. There you go, okay, which one's pick or choose, based on what you see in the survey, and what, what our own gut assessment is. As an example, I think we're hearing that the admin building, we all agree that needs to be upgrades to the admin building, so that maybe another $6 or $7 million. But that's kind of how I look at it. There's 120 million. It's like, you just got to do it to run run a district this size and keep things up to date and keep things running and air conditioning, that's been, to me, it's been a theme that's been out there for a long time, and it's like, you just gotta do it. So then the remaining 120, how do you spread across the remaining 3 buckets?
Right.
That's kind of my, that's what my head's at.
Yeah, me too, and then of course my mind goes, well, are there things within the buckets we wanna move around, you know, and
Right.
how do we
That's
get there?
what-
We
Yeah,
gotta-
yeah,
we gotta get rid of-
How do you move them around?
You gotta get rid of, that's where my mind's going, like, how, does it make sense to just get rid of 1, 2, like, in its entirety, bucket 1, 2, or 3? Right, and I don't know,
I
right?
didn't
Those
wanna
are
make
tough
it that
decisions.
simple by just getting rid of a bucket.
I know that,
But
I
to your
understand that,
point,
but like,
there are two different ways to look at it.
yeah,
Right.
yeah. Awesome, thank you, Doug.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, so take a look at that. We
Thank
put
you
some-
guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, we put some questions in there that you might have that
Yeah,
we're not
that
there
was
yet,
nice.
we'll do more and go from there. So, and then I'll talk to Greg, we'll figure out what's next. So please, you know, not that this isn't a confidential document, I do know that looking at the price tag on some of these, you might look and think, well, if I went to Lowe's and bought these unit air conditioners, it would be a lot cheaper.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way, there's a lot to it that are, I think people outside of this circle might not know. So, you know, I'm not here to challenge the price of this, I'm really challenging the philosophy on which ones do you think we should prioritize in this spot. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody.
Yep, drive
Thank
safe.
you.
Okay,
Thank
thanks.
you.
Thank you, Ed. Okay, it looks like we're done with the, most of the, meeting here, except we've got one closed session, so I'd like to, I think at this point, ask if, we could have a motion to go into.
Motion to go to closed session.
Okay, Ken?
Support.
Support Dawn. Any discussion? Okay, Nick?
Yes.
Yes.
Dawn?
Yes.
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 Yes.